When I started this project, I knew that being more immersed in the Edmonton trans community might just act as a catalyst for my own introspection. We're only on episode 2 here, and I'm already finding this to be very accurate. In contrast, since I began exploring exactly how I fit into the trans narrative 4 odd years ago, I have gone through periods of agonizing stagnation. Whether because of personal relationships, injury, or a global pandemic, I have found myself unable to find solid footing on which to take this conversation I've been having with myself to the next level. What I continue to remind myself is that these things take time. Be patient with yourself. It's not a race, and if it was, it would never be too late to cross the starting line. Get outside, walk your dog, take a moment to breathe. Remind yourself to trust the process and that nobody, literally nobody, has everything figured out. We're all just doing the best we can at being the best that we can. This is episode 2 of Gender. I hardly know them. Today, we're joined by Mel. Mel is in the process of exploring their gender identity and uses she/they pronouns.
Now let's see if I remember how to do this, because it's been a hot second since I've crocheted. But I've also done significantly enough that
it should come back?
it should.
You're riding your crochet bicycle?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see how many times it takes me to do this magic ring.
Oh god, magic rings though? Magic rings though.
They're bad.
Forget about it.
I'm writing a book right now based on a previous tabletop character I'd played. And I was like, I want to write about this quirky little character of mine. And in this book that I'm writing, there's a gender fluid character that I wanted to make who is just very like androgynous in every way. And I was talking to my friend saying, wow, I identify so much with this character who is my main character, but every day I wake up and I want to be this androgynous character. And then it dived into me saying, it's like my she/they pronouns are fighting for dominance over being the femme fairy type and just a goth androgynous baddie every day. My main character, her name is Ashrin, and I've always pictured her as a very femme-presenting character. And even though she can like shapeshift and like be any gender she wants to, she always just kind of fell into that feminine presence, which I really liked, where she's still very strong, but she kind of finds that strength in her being feminine. And this androgynous character that I want to write about is kind of like, you know, villain of book 1, enemies to lovers thing maybe later. And they, on the other hand, didn't feel like a feminine or masculine character. They felt very fluid in their gender, very androgynous. So I was like, well, if I'm going to write a book, I might as well make it like as queer and, you know, as representative as possible, where it's like, it's not a big deal that they're a gender fluid character. Everyone just knows their pronouns and uses it and respects it. And as I just been writing about them, I'm like, I really like this character. And being able to write in the perspective of somebody who's gender fluid or androgynous has also been very interesting too, where I get to ask my friends who are gender fluid and non-binary and all these other genders to get their opinion on like how I can do this in a respectful manner while also getting to explore it, I guess, from my own perspective. So it's really cool to explore that. And it was, I guess, thinking about like my own gender is kind of a benefit of it, where now I'm like, cool, I'm going to come out with a new gender at the end of this book. It just writing these characters too, it does feel very much like that two sides of like my she, they pronouns, because every day I want to be like very femme presenting, but other days I'm like, I really just want to not be like femme, I guess. And that's also in its own way a very new feeling for me, where I'm like attracted to the androgynous look, not in just like bisexually attracted to it, but also like attracted to it as in I want to be that. I want to look like that. It feels like a fun way to explore the other side of like, you know, I had to take back my femininity at one point in my life, and then now I get to explore like accepting that it's not just about being femme, and also being, you know, just a strong person, even if I am femme presenting most of the time. And that's really fun for that.
All right. Well, we're crocheting.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's something that Mel really enjoys doing, and something I'm trying to get into more. I would love to say that it's to make really cheap, cute clothes. However, making them is difficult.
Yes.
And also, yarn is so much more expensive than I ever thought it would be.
Yeah.
How do you find Alberta kind of differs from where you have lived in regards to like acceptance and, you know?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, my hometown, while it is a university town, wildly homophobic.
Oh.
Yeah. Since moving here, I find like I found a nice group of people who are very accepting, or themselves are like non-straight, non-cis.
Yeah.
So that's helped.
Totally.
And then the rest of it, it's just like, sometimes I have to remind myself like, oh, right.
When you get out of that bubble and you're
Yeah.
like, right. Not everyone is
Yeah.
quite as accepting. Yeah. So talking about like the importance of like a found community, like how have you found that affected your life? Like finding a group of people that, you know, like share the similar beliefs and like are very accepting of whatever kind of discoveries you want to make.
Yeah. Honestly, having that, I feel, is what led me into really sitting down and thinking about my gender
Oh yeah.
and like how I identify.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I can't remember if I mentioned it before, but like I didn't really come out as bisexual until like university. And even then I hung on to like, no, I'm as straight as a ruler. And then everyone else would be like, oh, that's Mel, she's straight. But they all let me kind of just figure out my own thing, because they
That's
were
nice,
they were a
though.
group of like also non-straight people
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and non-cis.
Yeah.
And they were just like the nerdy group that I fell into there.
Great.
And yeah, now everyone's like, yeah, no, she'll come out when she needs to.
Which I think is a very good approach.
Yeah.
Don't ever force anyone to come out.
Yeah. So like I have mad respect for all my friends who are like that. It was just one of those things where like I didn't even know what bisexual really meant in high school. Like there were people who were bisexual and gay in my high school.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just one of those things though that I never really like had the access or the, like I was very afraid to look it up because I didn't know what I would find.
Right.
But then like I'd go to slumber parties and be like, oh, I hope you play Truth or Dare and I get to kiss a girl. But I'm straight. I'm straight though. I'm straight.
But I'm so straight.
so straight.
I remember sitting and thinking about it for a long time, like, I really want to start using she, they pronouns. And again, it was before I started writing, and I think I've been using them now for about 2 years. And I remember talking to the same friend that's agender, and I was like, I think I want to start using these pronouns. And they were like, try it. Like, what you can. You're allowed to just try it out. And I'm like, I don't want to be like disrespectful or anything, because like I want to see if I like it. And I remember the first time I had friends start like switching between that she and they, and I was like, that felt very validating, and I really liked the way that felt. So that was really cool. It was one of those moments that I really realized like gender is so wild and like such a wide spectrum. Because I remember when I first started trying them out, and I was seeing a therapist, we were talking about some like childhood trauma stuff, and one of them being the fact that I go by Mel. And my mom was so against me ever using the nickname Mel because it reminded her of Mel Gibson. And she was like, it's too masculine of a name, so you're just going to go by Melissa. And I was like, what? And my therapist was like, well, I'm surprised you haven't like had a gender crisis at one point. And I made a face and she's like, unless you are, and we could talk about that too. I was like, it's just ironic timing.
We were talking about this before, where like I don't necessarily sit in one solid spot on the spectrum, and like day to day I'll feel different. Generally, like I do find myself falling more on the like feminine side of the scale. But like some days I'm feeling real feminine, and other days I'm kind of just ambivalent.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like a lot of that is just like where I'm at mentally that day. Do I have the capacity to like, I don't know, worry about how my hair looks or whatever?
Yeah.
And like worry that I'm presenting properly.
Relatable.
Yeah, it's an energy thing.
Yeah.
You know? But like, I do struggle with the idea that I don't necessarily have like, I haven't found solid ground, and I think I might just have to accept that I won't. And that like my solid ground is just going to be kind of this shifting space.
Yeah.
Where like I just kind of have to be okay with being non-binary, and kind of the fact that it's not going to be a constant thing. Like I will feel different day to day, but that's kind of hard.
Yeah. Well, and like, I know we talked too about the, like, you know, some days I just want to be like fairy princess,
Yes.
femme, and then other days I just want to be like an androgynous goth and like make everyone question everything. But
Yeah.
it makes it a little complicated sometimes when you like are very femme present or very femme looking.
Right. Yeah.
And then there are some days where I'm like, I just want to wear a big comfy sweater and not look like anything.
Yeah. Right.
Like I just kind of want to mesh into the world, and I'm finding recently like there's more days like that.
Yeah.
Where like I'm like really wanting to be more androgynous looking, but it's a very hard thing for me to do.
Yeah.
Just based on my own like physicality.
Right. Yeah. Oh man, the gender envy is real though.
Yeah, and yeah, I feel like the more I like kind of dive into this whole like self-exploration thing, the more I find I'm getting it.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like I'm letting myself have that now, or like,
Which yeah, I mean, I feel like that's step one, right?
yeah,
Is to like accept how you're feeling.
Yeah.
You know? So that's good. It's good that you're having that space to explore, I think, right?
And then of course, like having the friends and stuff that I have, and even like my partner who's just like, whatever you want me to call you, I'll call you.
Yeah.
And it's very nice because it opens up that like, well, now I don't have to worry about losing people I care about if anything were to happen.
Yeah. I think that's great because like it allows you the space. It gives you like that air to experiment a little bit and not be worried like where the line is.
Yeah.
Because that can be a really like stifling thing.
Yeah.
When you find yourself in like a relationship or a space where you're like, okay, so like maybe nail polish isn't the line, but makeup?
Yeah.
And then you're trying to like explore this thing in a safe area, but you don't know exactly how far is too far. So it's nice to be in a relationship like that where like they're like, yeah, whatever.
like that was something that was so like reassuring to me going into like this new relationship that I didn't realize that I needed. And like even now as I'm writing and like I talk to him about like the book and this androgynous character all the time, and he's like, cool, like I love this for you, I love that you get to do this. And it's so relieving to like, yeah, like you said, to have that space to breathe and like really just try stuff out. I mean, like even my brother who's going through like his own gender search or gender crisis, I don't want to call it a crisis, gender journey, where, you know, he was born female and now he identifies as he, they, and he came out recently to my parents and they were just like, no. When my brother came out to me and told me like, hey, I'm using he, they pronouns, I'm like, cool, you're my brother. He's like, cool, that really feels nice, thank you. It's like, see how easy it is? It's so easy. I guess the best way I can say it's like going into a pool and being like, oh, they're in the pool and the water's really cold, and they're telling you the water's really cold where they're at in like the deep end. And you're like outside of the pool, you're like, oh, I don't know how cold it is. Like, and then I feel like I'm just kind of in like the shallow end. I'm like, oh no, I get it now. Like I did get it. It just like my toes were dipped in and I didn't really get the full extent of it. Where like I get it now, just not at the same level as like them, I guess. Cause like people can still get away with just calling me she, her pronouns. And like it's not wrong. So I don't get the full extent of like being misgendered every day. It's just very nice when people are like use the they, them pronouns with me, and it's like, cool, that's very validating. It gives me like a little grain of serotonin whenever it happens, because I'm like, cool, people remembered that. And I feel like people who use she, they pronouns or like he, him pronouns, he, they pronouns, sorry, kind of experience that a lot, where people just like forget the they, them part because it's easy to, where it's like, I'm looking at you and I see this gender, so I'm just going to focus on that gender and I don't really care about the they, them part, because like you put it at the tail end, it's not as important. And it's like, okay, but it's still there. It's still there, and it's still something like I resonate with to a point where I would expose myself and say that I identify as that way. And like, it's also just the normalization of using they, them pronouns too that's like super important to me.
That is coming together so fast.
I know. I might make a second one.
That's wild. And I started with nothing today. No, I didn't. This is weeks old. All right, show me what you're doing.
So it's just, well, it just kind of goes in a circle.
That's such a tiny hook that I could never. What size hook is that?
This is 5 mil.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got an 8 mil.
Yeah.
Right here. I guess 5, that's like kind of like worsted weight, right?
Yeah, I think I have smaller at home too.
Oh.
But I haven't tried doing like
never.
small crochets.
I mean, I feel like that classifies as pretty small.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know.
I made a whole blanket like with this hook too at one point. Yeah. It wasn't good.
I mean, I'm sure it was good. I just like, it sounds like torture.
Yeah.
When I first started using she, they pronouns, it was at the tail end of my time in the Army. And it was also right around the time where the unit that I was working at started using or they started adding pronouns to like their email, like signature. And I was like, hey, that's super freaking cool. Because in the military, a lot of times you don't know somebody's gender. It's all based on last names and titles. And at least that way you can still respect somebody, because you don't know how they identify. And like, you don't want to make somebody upset by saying ma'am instead of sir, or you don't know like what titles that they prefer. And so changing my pronouns in my email to she, they was like, I guess one of my first like real like acts of like, wow, this isn't just how I'm identifying online or with my close friends. This is now like how I'm presenting myself outwardly. Like, while the military tries to put on a front of being very supportive, people still have their own opinions, and you're still going to have people who are going to be like, meh. snowflakes and pronouns and everyone has to be special. And it's like, man, I don't want to be special. I just want to be me. I just want to like express myself the way I want to. There was like a seminar we had to do for like sexuality and gender like acceptance or something. It was just like an information thing. I remember laughing about it at the time because they had like all of these different things. They were like talking about like non-binary and like they them pronouns, and I was like, hey, this is really cool. They didn't mention bisexuality at all in that presentation. I was like, wow. That's really funny because like you, as a bisexual, we make jokes all the time about like bi erasure and stuff, and I'm like, it's really right there. It's literally right there.
So you work in the tattoo and piercing industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like how do you find that industry as like an accepting place, or like what practices do they have that make it accepting, I guess?
So the number one thing is like going, especially with piercings, where people will come in, especially navel piercings, we'll say.
Okay.
People assume that is a very like feminine piercing, which
Right.
It's not. Like anyone can get those.
I mean, but only people born with female genitals have belly buttons.
Of course.
Sorry.
So funny.
Yeah, we don't like discriminate or say like, oh, that's a girl piercing or that's a boy piercing. It's like, cool, I love that you're doing this. Let's go make sure you have like the proper setup for us to do this. And like there's one customer that's like currently going through it, and they just like come in every once in a while and they're like, I want to do something, I want to feel more girly, and like I'm having a really rough time right now, so I want to do something that's like affirming. And it's like, I love that so much for you. Absolutely. I will drop everything I'm doing and like pour everything into this because I want you to like have this experience and like this validation. And it's so cool that like body modification stuff can do that for people. And I love doing this part of my job because it's like you get to validate people and like the weird, like the smallest way. And it's so like heartwarming to see somebody like come out and be like, I got this piercing and now I feel like I'm validating myself, or like I appeased the little girl in me that's like been trapped away for so long. And I'm like, it makes me so happy. I'm so glad for you. I had been on a writing binge for a while and kind of went back to it, and I was doing a lot of art for this androgynous character, and I'm like, man, I'm really focusing in on them. And like, I just really want to be them. And like, I had like a whole crisis the morning that I wrote that one tweet, because I was like, is this just me like awakening into like being non-binary or like having something like not super femme? And it wasn't until like I talked to my friend more about it where it's like, I mean, like it could just be like your two like sides of it, like where you want to be like that soft and femme presenting, but you also want to be like super hardcore goth. And I'm like, oh yeah, my two pronouns. And it'll be interesting, I guess, to see where I'm at whenever I do finish these books, and if it is something that's like very much like change my own perspective of my own gender, I guess. I have a lot of muscle, and I know that I will never be like super skinny, but I just want to get more buff because I want to have that like, I guess like not even just to be like a feminine buff person, but I feel like that would be like my spectrum where I can look very feminine, but I'm also super ripped. like I want to be able to like bench press like somebody's weight, but then like clean up really well and wear a cute dress and like go party and like wear like cute makeup and stuff. Like I want the best of both worlds. And there's also been a time where I've thought about like, maybe I should just get a binder to see like what it feels like, because like I feel like because I'm so big chested, I can't have that like androgyny look I really want, because I'm always going to be presumed or perceived as like very feminine because I have a chest. I've had a lot of that like erasure of like, well, you're like sort of bi because like you haven't been with somebody. And I guess when I first started using she, they pronouns, that was also a fear I had where people would be like, well, you're not like really going through anything gender like related because like you're still like hanging on to your she, her pronouns, or like, you know, you haven't like made a drastic change. Like, it was very nice to know that I'm in like a community now that is not like that at all, where I have that group of friends who are like, cool, that's awesome, I love that you're doing this for yourself, instead of being like, well, are you really? And like that is so validating. And like, yeah, it's nice to hear that even like if I am feeling more femme one day, it doesn't change like how I identify, and like, or invalidates like what I feel or how I identify, and that's super cool. Yeah, and it's one of those things too, like you could be doing this your entire life trying to figure out like how you identify, because gender is like on such a huge spectrum. Like, I mean, like I said, I'm almost 30 and I've only just started using like the she, they pronouns in the last couple of years, and like now I'm like really questioning everything, where it's like, oh, okay, here we go. And it's like, even though comparing myself, or not to compare myself to my brother, but like, you know, he gets to go through these experiences so young, and like I love that for him, because I hope he finds like where he fits and that helps him. And then looking at myself where it's like, well, I had to go through like all of this stuff to get to this spot, and now I can go explore the rest of it. And it's hard not to feel like you're a little bit behind sometimes, but it's also nice to know like, well, so is everyone. Like, some people can spend their whole lives like thinking that they're one thing and realizing like their 50s that they're like identifying differently, and like that's still super valid. So it's one of those things you have to like, I have to keep reminding myself, like, even though I'm almost 30 going through all this, doesn't change how I may have felt my entire life about it, or like doesn't change that this is still a valid journey that I'm going on.
All right, well, we've been crocheting for a little while now. I have gotten, I don't know, did I even do a full loop? I didn't. I'm realizing now.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's a process.
It is a process.
It'll happen.
You can't rush a good crochet.
Yeah. But Mel did finish their project, the 2B.
Little 2B.
Yeah.
He's a little long boy. With a nice little stinger butt, which we love.
So where did you find the pattern for this guy?
I got him on YouTube. There's a lot of free patterns on YouTube for crocheting, which made it very easy to get into for making little figures and stuff. And yeah, of course you can always like buy some off Etsy and everything. But, yeah. We lost count, made him a little bit longer, so we made him our own little guy.
Yeah, it was inspired by
but
YouTube took on his own life. Thank you so much, though. I really appreciate you joining us and sharing your experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm excited to see where this book takes you.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah,
this was a lot of fun and like very insightful too to like talk about it and kind of voice my own like feelings and stuff.
Yeah, it's always great to hang out with people who are experiencing similar things.
Yeah. And like crocheting's always fun.
That too. Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of obsessed now, so yeah.
That's good. We'll have more crochet dates on.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, bye.
He's so fun. I love him.
He's so cute. Thank you.
Of course.
Oh, so derpy.
Derpy.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. All I know are bee puns now.
I love his little stinger butt.